Many of us have had fan fictions over the years, and one in particular that all of us have thought about is in regards to Obi-Wan never following Padme to Mustafar. I always felt like during that scene where Padme was talking to Anakin on Mustafar, just after he slaughtered the Separatists, things were going somewhat calm, at least in pale comparison to when he saw Obi-Wan. Now, there's actually an answer for this had Obi-Wan not showed up, and it comes from none other than Darth Vader himself. The source for this information is from the book Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader by James Luceno. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it's also because he wrote the Darth Plagueis book, which is my favorite Star Wars book of all time. Definitely my top 5. And I have to add this book in that list too, because it just has so much cool information regarding Vader and Obi-Wan after Revenge of the Sith. And the book was actually released in 2005, which is when Revenge of the Sith came out. So in my mind, this is canon, while of course in the new Disney Star Wars canon, it is completely Legends, 100%. So let's go ahead and read the excerpt which comes from Vader's mind himself regarding Obi-Wan never showing up on Mustafar, and then we can talk about it. Oh, but on Mustafar she had worked herself into a state over what he had done at the temple. So much so that she hadn't heard a word he was saying. Instead, she had made up her mind that he had come to care more about power than he cared for her.
As if one matters without the other.
And then cursed Obi-Wan had shown himself, interrupting before Anakin could explain fully that everything he had done in Palpatine's office and at the temple had all been for her sake, and for the sake of their unborn child. Had Obi-Wan not arrived, he would have persuaded her to understand. He would have made her understand, and together they would have moved against the Sith Lord. The rasp of Vader's breathing became more audible. Flexing his artificial hands did nothing to waylay his rage, so he hunched his broad shoulders under the armor pectoral and heavy cloak, shuddering.
Why didn't she listen to me? Why didn't any of them listen to me?
Now, the rest of the excerpt, of course, continues on into the pages of the book, and it talks about how Anakin wasn't stupid. Vader has this inner monologue where he's describing that Anakin wasn't stupid, that Anakin wasn't going to just ignore the fact that Palpatine had been manipulating him and the war for so many years, but rather he did everything for a very specific purpose. And we're going to go into that in another video, perhaps the next video. So what I really like about this is that we've all speculated, what if Obi-Wan had never shown up on Padme's ship on Mustafar? And Vader himself is having this exact same discussion with himself and revealing to us that, indeed, things would have probably gone a lot better had Obi-Wan not shown up. The situation was quite under control, and Anakin felt that he could have persuaded Padme to follow his lead for the greater good, to destroy the Emperor. Now, as far gone as Anakin was in this moment, he was still Anakin and he was still level-headed when it came to Padme. So even with everything that Anakin had done, with the younglings and everyone at the temple, Padme still wanted him to go with her to Naboo and raise their baby. And I think Anakin would have done this. I believe maybe within a year's time of serving the Emperor, Anakin would have reached this ultimate peak power where he would have just been able to absolutely destroy him, as the Emperor had foreseen when he told Yoda, "Soon Darth Vader will be more powerful than either of us." And this indeed was true, as per George Lucas's teachings, that Anakin would have been twice as powerful as the Emperor had he reached his ultimate pinnacle form. Now, he didn't, and so becoming Darth Vader in the suit reduced him to 80% of the Emperor's full power, which means even on a bad day, he wouldn't be able to destroy the Emperor, especially with that electric conducting suit. We also get to see that Anakin, or Vader, had his own point of view of everything, and indeed he felt that he was doing everything for the right reasons. He felt he was doing everything in the name of love and for her sake. And these are of course very selfish reasons. These aren't reasons necessarily for Padme. He's doing them for him without even knowing it, because he's unbelievably selfish, because he can't stand to lose her. I really like the fanfiction idea of Anakin and Padme moving against the Emperor. Them both creating a plot to destroy the Sith, while Anakin probably would work for the Emperor for like a year until he was ready to go, maybe even 6 months. Now, Nick Gillard, who I had a brilliant interview with, I absolutely love talking to the guy, and we still text to this day, informed all of us about the ranking system that he had devised in Star Wars for the dueling and battling, and to essentially kind of put characters in a ranking system. Now, he had mentioned that Anakin had jumped to a level 9 once he had turned to the dark side, and it was kind of a trick, kind of a cheap thing to do, because once he turned to the dark side, he hadn't really put in the hours that would be required to advance to a level 9, which is very difficult. So there were a lot of steps and things and training and battle experience that he was missing, albeit his powers being at a level 9, but he didn't really know how to use them all that well. So I feel like over time, Anakin would have been able to eventually achieve a level 10, surpass the Emperor, and absolutely destroy him. And from there, he would have the whole Empire to control at his command, which I believe he would give some power to Padme. I don't think he would be totally just like he was during the Clone Wars, but I think he would definitely be a little more caring and loving and wanting a galaxy to be better for his children, Luke and Leia. Now, the issue with Anakin's plan here, as we have seen, for him to move against the Emperor with Padme, is that they would have eventually had their kids, which we know was very soon. The Emperor would have sunk his teeth into these kids and tried to turn them to the dark side from a very young age. I think herein lies the problem. Anakin would eventually become so angry at this because of, well, Palpatine doing this to his kids, and also Padme becoming very afraid and constantly nagging Anakin to take care of it so that the Emperor isn't doing what he's doing by turning them to the dark side and essentially brainwashing them. And I think Anakin would possibly lash out of anger way too soon, and the Emperor would destroy him. Either completely kill him because he knows he's got his kids, or he would just leave him not as powerful as he was before, kind of like what Obi-Wan did, and so he would be doomed forever. So there is a slight chance that Anakin would have defeated the Emperor, but we have to remember that there is an issue with Anakin, and the main issue is that he is a hothead. He thinks he is the best out there, the chosen one, the most powerful being in the universe, and while he is, he definitely hasn't reached his peak form yet. And it's his arrogance that I think holds him back. And in turn, this would probably get him killed by the Emperor, or at the very least, become permanently less powerful. I always like diving into these books and discussing some of the things like Vader's inner monologue here, because it gives us a bit of an insight, not to just, theories and such, but actual evidence of the character thinking of these fanfictions for themselves. And it lets us just sort of fantasize and have fun with the fact that this is how the story would have gone had the characters made these different fanfiction-y what-if scenarios and choices. So in this one, I do think if Obi-Wan had not shown up, or even had he given Anakin a little bit more leeway during their conversation, during their fight, and not been so dogmatic to just say, well then you are lost, and try to fight Anakin constantly every time Anakin tried to talk to him, I think things could have gone potentially a little bit better. Maybe Obi-Wan could have turned Anakin back to the light briefly, just in time for the Emperor to show up, and they both could have gone at him. Maybe the Emperor would have done something to Padme, Anakin would have unlocked some new powers, and it just would have been a pretty interesting story and a very heated fight. So while Anakin, of course, is to blame, I do feel the Jedi played a major role in his turn to the dark side by just not taking proper care of his mental health. They realized how he was and who he was and the issues he had, and they just kind of ignored them and said, well, just do better. Or just don't worry about this person dying or that person getting sick. There's nothing you can do about it. Mourn them, do not. Miss them, do not. And of course, in the end, with denying him the rank of master, I think a lot of this stuff would eventually get to Anakin, which, in fact, it did. And there are many more excerpts in this book, which I'm going to go over, which will be really fun. So make sure you look out for those. Turn on the bell notification if you want to be notified. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know what you think about this fanfiction scenario that Vader gives himself, Vader gives Anakin. I always love reading these and having some fun with them and speculating with you guys. As always, have a great day, and may the Force be with you always.